All right, so we're here with Merrick Deville. Do you want to introduce yourself really quick?
Yeah, hi. I am a leftist sex worker and I make mostly sex work content on YouTube. I also do educational threads on Twitter, and lately I have started streaming. And I'm here to talk to you about sex work legislation today.
Don't you read theory on your OnlyFans?
Oh, yeah, sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can also if you wait. Is this? I don't know if that's actually allowed. Are you allowed to advertise your OnlyFans on YouTube?
No, I don't see why you couldn't, because OnlyFans isn't just for porn. You can do anything on OnlyFans.
Yeah, I know that's true, but I know that like Instagram is really hard on sex workers, and you're not allowed to have like. I'm pretty sure you can get banned just for having like, and not only just for being like a sex worker if they find out, but also even link like if you link your OnlyFans in your bio or anything like that.
So, I actually got my swipe up feature taken away on OnlyFans, or I'm sorry, on Instagram because I was linking my OnlyFans. So they took that away from me for a little bit.
Yep.
They're really, really harsh about it, and they just passed. They just passed new guidelines because Instagram is owned by Facebook, so they use the Facebook community guidelines. So they just passed a new thing saying that if you have anything that links to any like third-party website that has any sort of pornography on it, they can just take your whole account away. They've also passed something new saying that if your domain name doesn't match your username, that they can close your whole account for that too. So a lot of girls with like personal websites are now at risk of having their accounts completely destroyed or taken away on Instagram.
Damn, that's awful. Yeah, I know that Instagram's like really harsh and that kind of shit. As you can probably imagine, being a leftist streamer, I've actually like come into contact with and like even befriended quite a few sex workers. It's just sort of like part of the territory, I guess. Not complaining, it's pretty pog. But yeah, I've actually learned a lot about this. I don't know if you're aware of Christy Stevens.
No, who is that?
So if you go on Pornhub and look up blonde MILF, she is in almost every video that comes up.
Oh, I see.
So yeah, she's pretty like up there, right? And so yeah, me and her are friends, and she was probably one of the first like larger sex workers to follow me, and I talked to her a lot about this kind of stuff, and I actually learned a lot of interesting things about how unironically oppressed sex workers are, just in general. And especially online, like when it comes to the TOS of certain websites, how discriminatory they can be. It's really fucked up.
Yeah, they're basically moving in a direction heavily pushed by Instagram and Facebook, which have the largest user base to pretty much drive us offline, and that is the new concern with this new bill. Is that it's going to make hosting porn on the internet anywhere extremely difficult, and Instagram especially is going after not just porn but exotic dancers as well. So part of the new terms of service that they just passed was that you can't have any photos or video or story that feature anything that happens inside of a strip club. So say you have a really cool pole routine that you filmed during like, I don't know, the early hours where there's not a lot of customers and you look great, but you filmed it in the club, you can get a strike on your account, or if you have enough strikes, you can get your account actually taken away for that.
Yeah, there's no excuse for that. There's no excuse for taking that action. Um,
Yeah.
how do you feel about Twitter? Because Twitter seems to be, for all of its issues, probably the most friendly at the moment. Like, you can post nude images on Twitter. You're allowed to do that. You just have to mark it, I think. Do you think Twitter's going to continue to be, like, one of the more friendly mainstream websites for that? Or do you think they're going to start moving in the same direction?
Well, it depends on what happens with this legislation. Like, unfortunately, right now, Twitter and Reddit are the most friendly places for sex workers. With and they both have their drawbacks because Twitter censors your account if you're a sex worker.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if your account is marked for sensitive material, or if their algorithms pick up that you're posting sensitive material, they'll shadow ban you. Not necessarily every sex worker all the time, but a lot of sex workers a lot of the time are shadow banned, and they'll really like deprioritize your content. So that is bad that's bad for, on the Twitter side. They'll let you post whatever you want for now, but on Reddit they don't necessarily deprioritize your content or shadow ban you on Reddit, because that's not really a thing over there. But the harassment and the way that you get treated over on Reddit for having any sort of for being a sex worker or posting a lot of sexual content is makes the platform almost unusable if you want to be in other subs other than just strictly sexual subs. And even if you want to be in just strictly sexual subs, you have to have pretty thick skin.
Yeah.
So there's not really a lot of genuinely friendly spaces for sex workers online.
I know a lot of people that do OnlyFans and stuff, and they tell me about how there's entire Reddits that are meant to re-upload. Usually it's stuff that's behind a paywall, stuff from OnlyFans and stuff like that. There's entire subreddits for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I'll post I'll post stuff on Instagram, and one thing that I like to do is confession time, so you can post questions on Instagram and people can respond to them, and without fail, every time someone tells me about how they've pirated my content and how they jerk off to my OnlyFans content for free, and I'm always just like, why would you tell me that?
Yeah, now you can actually take action and DMCA it, can't you?
I can if I can prove it.
Oh,
but if it's just
so it's
someone
better.
being like, oh, I downloaded all your shit off of this website, there's not really all that much that I can do.
Yeah, that's true. I imagine Reddit's probably easier.
Oh, excuse me, sorry.
Oh.
Hold on, my lighting setup is all, I'm just dropping shit. Yeah, there's not much I can do if someone's like, haha, I'm just taking food off your table, what am I gonna do? That really works a lot better, if you can find it on a website.
Yeah, that's true. Somebody actually let me know that Yif Party was also a huge site for reposting Patreon paywalled stuff. I'll admit, I used Yif Party once to download a pirated version of a shader for Minecraft by Sonic Ether. Back then, I wasn't making as much money, and I really wanted to try out There's this shader by Sonic Ether that's it allows certain texture packs that have, or resource packs that let you go have 3D textures. With that shader, it works, but I didn't have enough money to pledge to get access to it, so I used it for that. But then as soon as I started making more money, I went and I actually subbed to Sonic Ether on Patreon. So yeah, I know about stuff like that, but how badly do you think that kind of thing affects your bottom line?
It's really hard to say. When I was in favor on lefty Twitter, it wasn't hurting my bottom line at all. I don't know that it really does. I really think it comes down to your popularity. If you're popular enough, it doesn't matter. Enough people will pay for your content because they want to support you. If you're a smaller creator, or if you are, a more controversial figure, I don't know, because you got to figure that if someone is going to steal your content, they weren't going to pay for it anyway. They were never going to give you money,
If they're desperate enough, I imagine they would, right?
Give me money?
Yeah, if they really want to see the booba and they can't find it for free anywhere online, they probably would be all right, fuck, yeah.
Maybe. I think it depends on the person, because you got to understand there is so much free porn online.
Yeah.
It's really, really hard to say. I mean, if someone was that crazy about me, but if someone is that crazy about me, they're probably going to pay me. You know what I mean? Yeah,
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really I know a lot about the logistics behind sex work and OnlyFans, but I don't know much about the culture of doing it, Do you have before we get into the other stuff that we're going to talk about, the proposed law, was it the siesta, something like that? Siza, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
Stacey.
Was there anything relevant that you wanted to talk about before we get into that?
Oh, about the culture of doing OnlyFans and stuff?
Or just in general, sex work in general.
Oh, yeah, I wanted to, because I know we briefly touched on it in DMs, but what did you think of my thing the other night? And did you have any criticism for me?
Your debate? I had my friend Denims over, and me and Denims watched it on we brought it up on the TV. We thought you did really, really good, even at the beginning when you said you didn't do that well. I thought it was pretty good. From what it seemed like, you were there to talk about the Like, you weren't there to talk about like the effects of porn. You were there specifically to talk about OnlyFans, and he just kind of like moved in that direction. But even though he kind of like blindsided you there, you did really good.
Oh, thank you. Okay, that's cool. I felt like I let him kind of steamroll me a little bit at first, but
I don't think so. I think you were like, as you said on Twitter, I think you femdomed him.
maybe towards the end.
Yeah, definitely towards the end, but I still think you held out pretty good towards the beginning. I have the same tendency where, like, in the debates where I do badly, typically it's badly at the beginning, but towards the end I start doing really well. But no one remembers the end. No one typically remembers the end. They only remember the beginning of the debate. I don't know why that is or how that happens, but that's typically the thing for me as well. And this just seems to be a thing that goes on as you just stream and as you debate more. It's literally all practice. You just have to keep doing it, and you'll get better and better at it.
That's cool. Do you remember your first debate?
My first real debate, I did terribly in, and I did it on stream too. I think I was debating this friend of. This would have been back in early 2019. I was friends with this kid named Tech that I played Fortnite with, and he was like your stereotypical 15-year-old Trump supporter, like tech bro, Elon Musk fan, and like his main argument was like, oh well, Elon Musk supports Trump, and Elon Musk is really smart, so Trump must be good. But I wasn't really that knowledgeable and that informed back then, so I did pretty badly. And I remember my chat, I only had like 50 viewers. My chat was like spamming, debate harder, or whatever, right? Like that's how I started off debating. I was fucking awful. And I still am not all that great. Like, I still have a long way to go. But it really is just practice. The more you're going to lose a lot more debates than you're going to win until you start getting to like Vosh or Destiny level debate skill.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. How long have you been doing it at this point?
So I've been streaming just in general since 2018, but I started getting into prepared content with politics in early 2019, and somewhere around May 2019, I started doing streaming and politics, but I didn't really start going hard. I would say until I got to California is when I really started going hard. Towards the beginning of this year, also when I did my brand switch and I started streaming more. But yeah, I don't know. 2021 I feel like is going to be like when I really start getting into it.
That's cool. It's exciting. Do you already know? Like, do you already have people lined up that you want to talk to, or do you just know that you're going to be doing it a lot more?
Like debates lined up, not so much. Just streaming in general is what I meant, but at least in terms of debates. Okay. There's some people I'd like to debate. Like, what I really want to focus on more than debates, I want to do more debates with people I pull from chat, like reactionaries and stuff like that. But when it comes to what I really want to do is talk to non-political content creators more. Are you aware of Long Beach Griffey?
No. Should I be? Who is that?
He's a big YouTuber, millions of subs. He does like skit videos, and he made a couple of skit videos, and like he doesn't mostly do politics, but he made a couple of skit videos a while back that I thought were pretty transphobic. So I covered them on stream, and he ended up reaching out to me, and we had a talk about it. And it was probably one of my best conversations I've had on stream, in my opinion. It was pretty cool. He ended up inviting me to come to his podcast and try some Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles, which I guess is a thing out here in California. So yeah, he's a pretty cool dude. We were able to get through some like misunderstandings and stuff like that, and I was able to, I feel like, educate him on some stuff. I want to do more stuff like that in 2021, like reaching out to non-political content creators, like the biggest ones I can, and just like have conversations with them.
Is this part of the drama community arc?
Not necessarily. It's like tangentially related, right? Like, a lot of people got mad when I said infiltrate the drama community. I guess it's strong wording. It was more so like talk to more of them and try to like explain to them why maybe some of their go-to opinions in regards to drama could be politically motivated in a direction that wouldn't be good. And just to like generally like hear what they have to say about politics, because I'm very interested in what non-political content creators believe politically. Have you ever like had that where you'll watch like a YouTuber who doesn't do politics and you're like, I wonder what this person thinks politically. Are they like a piece of shit? Are they cool? Like, it just, you kind of want to know, right?
Yeah, I feel like you can suss out certain things about someone's worldview, but there's still a lot of gaps missing.
For me, it's a lot of mannerisms. Have you ever like noticed that, like the way somebody talks or the like their inflection sometimes like gives me a hint, like, is this person a reactionary? Is this person like more progressive, you know? Like, I don't know. There's certain mannerisms that reactionaries tend to use in terms of like their voice or like, It's hard to describe. It's almost impossible to describe. But you can almost just tell by the way they speak, and it gives you like an inkling.
You think that that's just like an experience thing by just consuming so much of that type of content that you can kind of see when someone models it because they probably consume a lot of that type of content as well?
That's part of it, but it also almost seems like a tendency that comes along with being like an edgy, reactionary kind of guy. You know, like it's like the sort of one thing that I've noticed is like the kind of fake Boston accent almost, where they try to sound cool and they like go, "Oh yeah, this dumb fuck over here," you know, like that kind of thing. It like they're not from a place where they would have that accent, but they talk that way for their like public image, their public facing character on YouTube or whatever. I've heard so many reactionaries talk like that. For some reason, when I hear it, it like makes me feel like that person might be a bit more right leaning.
Huh. I've never thought of it that way. That's interesting.
That's not the perfect wording of it. It's more of a feeling that's hard to describe than it is like a tell that I could like point out, you know?
Right,
Vague
so, like,
quoting it, yeah. But
okay, that makes
yeah, was there anything else you wanted to cover before we get to that? Like It's a Gundam, right? Like It's a Gundam, if you've ever watched him, kind of talks that way, and it just sort of gives me reactionary vibes.
No, but I'll look that up. So first of all, I want to, before we talk about this, we kind of have to lay the groundwork for the other legislation that's been passed. So, like, is this something that you've talked to your chat about before? I assume it is, correct?
The other two, the really big ones, what are they called?
FOSTA and
FOSTA and
then
SESTA, yeah.
also the Earn It Act.
Yeah, no, I've talked about FOSTA and SESTA, but I haven't heard about the Earn It Act.
So the Earn It Act has to do with kids as well. Is this it? Yeah. So sponsored by Lindsey Graham, because of course it's sponsored by Lindsey Graham. And let's see. It's something that they put forth in the summer. So it's about child sexual exploitation. It's about child sexual exploitation on the surface.
Poggers coffee. Is that iced coffee?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's iced coffee.
Pog. I have normal hot coffee right here.
I can't do hot. It's too acidic for me. Zan, that's John. John, come talk to Zan.
Oh yeah, I've talked to him when I think whenever we were putting together that your statement with the Savvy drama. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, this is the actual.
You mean the dark time?
Yeah, this is the whole bill. I don't want to read you the whole ass bill. But basically, it's like it's supposed to protect kids, but of course, what it does is. Oh, it's about encryption. So basically what it does is it gives them access to, thank you, to end-to-end encryption. Mm-hmm. So let's see. Eliminating Abusive Rampant Neglect of Interactive Technologies Act. So they've passed it in the Senate Judicial Committee, and it's so I think it's what they want to do is be able to get into people's devices to see if they're talking about any sort of child exploitation. But this is going to be aimed at, of course, like sex work in general. Mm-hmm. It's the same with FOSTA and SESTA, where it's the Fight Online Sex Traffickers Act and the Stop Enabling Sex Traffickers Act. And they framed it as protecting kids, but, you know, what ends up happening is that, like, sex workers get targeted, and the people who traffic children, their arrests have plummeted, while prostitution arrests have gone up because the people who traffic children have just found other ways to traffic those kids. And now, whenever they do catch them or suspect that they have found a child trafficker, there's less evidence online. Mm-hmm. So here it is. It would significantly burden, this is about the Earn It Act, it would significantly burden the free expression rights of users of interactive computer services, particularly marginalized communities. It still jeopardizes the ability of service providers to provide encrypted services and creates a new set of Fourth Amendment problems. Let's see. I don't know do you know what CSAM is?
CESM, you mean?
No, CSAM. Oh.
No, I don't.
I think that's child sexual abuse material.
Oh, yep, that does sound like what it probably stands for.
Yeah. So it it wants providers to identify and take that down on their services. So basically the way that they're going to do that is by forcing their way into any encrypted material, period.
Yeah, you
So
should like what the big tell on this for why this won't work is basically the same reason that the drug war doesn't work, you know? Trying to blanket. So the problem is that the way that you want to. This is my opinion, and this seems to be backed up by like every criminologist and sociologist that I've like studied on. It seems like the way that you want to stop like sex trafficking and especially child sex trafficking is by legalizing and decriminalizing sex work. Because when this type of like work is is done in the light of day, you're able to more manage this industry and make it less rife with exploitation. When you try to criminalize it, it's going to attract criminals, and criminals are going to do what they want to do, regardless of what the law does to crack down on it. They'll just find new ways to hide it, and the people that are going to be harmed by this cracking down are people who aren't doing anything wrong, who aren't breaking the law, and who aren't doing anything that's wrong. It goes the same way with the drug war, right? These big cartels aren't the ones being affected by the drug war. It's low income people here in America that are harmed by it. This just isn't going to get the outcome that they claim they want. And I don't think it's the outcome that they claim they want. If Republicans, who are overwhelmingly the ones that push these bills, actually wanted to stop child exploitation, child sex trafficking, they would actually do something about the fact that child marriage is legal in, 46 states out of 50 right now, and it's always Republicans who defend the child marriage laws and whatnot. If they actually wanted to stop this kind of stuff, then they would do something about that. But no, they clearly just want to attack sex work.
well, I mean, it's also not just the child marriage thing. Whenever they were putting forth FOSTA and SESTA, which was co-sponsored by Kamala Harris, by the way, but whenever they were putting forth the idea for this bill, the Justice Department, sex work organizations, NGOs who study human trafficking, who don't necessarily have an agenda, came forward, and they were like, hey guys, this is actually a bad idea. And I think, when your Justice Department is coming to you and they're saying, hey, what you're proposing is actually going to make our jobs more difficult, and you push it forward anyway, I actually don't think that it has to do with attacking sex workers. I think that what it is that we as sex workers are not a voter demographic that matters. Mm-hmm. They don't care about our votes. They don't need our votes. And we are expendable, and we are acceptable collateral, essentially. Because if you're a suburban mom and you've never been around sex work, you don't know what it is, but you know that trafficking is bad, and you love your children, and you have an emotional reaction to child trafficking, and you hear that Senator Ann Wagner, who's, you are in the voting district of, has passed this bill that has cut down on trafficking. And the statement that Ann Wagner put out after FOSTA and SESTA was passed was that they had cut 90% of human trafficking online. So what she did was she took she cherry picked one data pinpoint, she cherry picked one data point from looking at January to April. April, right after the FBI seized Backpage, right before FOSTA and SESTA was passed. And there is a DARPA program that monitors sex ads online. So right after they seized Backpage, sex ads dropped 88% from what they had been in January. So she took that 88% data point, they shot back up to 75% of what they were by the time August came around. But so she took that data point and said, here, look, we cut and curbed and stopped 90% of sex trafficking with this bill. So if you're a suburban mom and you're a voter and you see, oh, look what Ann Wagner is doing. Look, she voted for this piece of legislation, which is making our world a better place and is making people safer. And you don't look into any of the legislation, and you don't care about sex work or sex workers, or you think that we're smut peddlers or whatever. You don't give a fuck. You're going to vote her back in because, oh, look at this great thing she did. So what I think it comes down to is that, politicians don't care about any of us, and they certainly don't care about marginalized groups. So our deaths and our suffering are 100% okay and worth it to them for them to pass legislation that sounds and feels good on the surface and will continue to get them reelected.
So you think it's more of a political motivation in order to appeal to
Absolutely.
uneducated voters that just kind of have
Yeah.
an emotional reaction than more of a personal ideological thing?
Sure. So you have to understand that everything, so like for politicians, everything is about power, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some people are true believers, but the vast majority of them don't give a flying fuck. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
they've got like a worldview that they've, a moral framework, a worldview, but I mean, if you're in power, all you give a shit about is staying in power. That's all that matters to you. I think that we've seen time and time and time again that the people who work in our government don't have any sort of morals or don't have any sort of like they lack the courage of their convictions, essentially, and
Yeah.
they'll go whatever the way the wind is blowing if that keeps the checks rolling in for them. And I think for a lot of people, sometimes people hate us, but I think even more than people hate us, because there are like incels and certain men that are like, oh, I wouldn't, that hate us. But most people are just kind of like, I wouldn't want my daughter doing that. So, we're very much dehumanized to people. Are you familiar with the term "no humans involved"?
No.
So in LAPD in the 70s, when they found the corpses of drug addicts, unhoused people, sex workers, etc., they would classify those killings as no humans involved, and they didn't need to be looked into. So we have, and this is something you can look up, like I'm not just making this up. So we have always, like, the Green River Killer. I think, hold on, I think it's the Green River Killer. The reason why we have the International Day to End Violence Against Sex Workers, which was a couple of days ago, is because it started as a memorial for the victims of the Green River Killer. And the Green River Killer killed 49 women, and he mostly killed sex workers because he knew that he would get away with it, because he knew that people wouldn't be looking for them, cops wouldn't care about their murders. If cops found their bodies, they weren't going to look into it too much. Basically, he, when he got caught, he was like, well, prostitutes don't matter. People don't care about them. So I knew that if I just killed them, I could get away with it. So I think it's less an issue of malice, and more an issue of people don't see us as other people equivalent to themselves.
Yeah, that actually does seem to be like part of it, definitely. The idea that it's a sort of like political fodder almost, rather than like actual people, which really sucks.
Expendable.
Though I feel like one thing that I feel like is actually helping solve this problem to a certain degree is Twitter, of all things. I know Twitter's awful and all that, but I've honestly, like, since I started, part of it is just being like more progressive and getting into lefty stuff, but also a lot of it is just like having built friendships with so many sex workers through the internet and through Twitter and whatnot, like you being an example of one, right? It just like, it sort of humanizes it for you, right? When you start to realize that, like, yeah, when you watch porn or whatever, the actors in those actors and actresses and so on in those videos aren't just like pieces of meat to jack off about, right? But they're also people, and many of them are, funny. They got their own personalities, and, it's cool to be friends with them as well. And I think that actually helps a lot. Like seeing like your favorite porn star shitpost on Twitter, that I feel like that helps a lot. With sort of like the humanization of this line of work, because we can't argue that for a long time, sex workers have been sort of dehumanized to a certain degree, at least by many of the people who consume their work. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think Twitter, Instagram, social media in general has definitely really helped to show that we actually, we're multifaceted. We have personalities, we have thoughts, we have feelings. Especially because, there's all these stereotypes, and it's funny. You're right. Like, I've been so surrounded by these communities that I've carved out and made for myself that are not necessarily there's definitely an underlying like attitude of swerfiness on the lot of the left, but it doesn't manifest itself in the overt ways that it does in other places. So you kind of forget about it sometimes. And you're right. I think that is because of exposure. So like the other day, I commented on a Paul Joseph Watson tweet. I think it was yesterday, actually. Did you see he tweeted if 100, or it was like, he was like, if all women left social media tomorrow, 100% of women would be happier. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Right. So it was super dumb. So I was like, okay, counterpoint. Why don't men make a concerted effort to stop being shitty to us online? How about that?
Yeah.
And I knew that this would be like, you know, people would be mad, but it was kind of interesting to see the like people being like, oh, you're gonna die 200 pounds alone with 6 cats and no one's gonna fucking love you. And, you know, I can smell you through the screen and like you smell like you have HPV and just, you know, all the shit that I was like, oh man, it's been so, I forgot people say shit like this, you know, like people were like going and commenting and they were like, well, maybe you wouldn't get treated like shit if you weren't such a whore. I was like, oh, I forgot for like, ooh, I forgot for a minute. But yeah, I mean, I think that there's like all these crazy negative stereotypes that existed about us for so long that it's like, you know, even the other day I said something about birth control and some guy was like, well, you know, I can tell your dad left you when you were young. And it was like, damn, you know, because he went to my profile. And then, you know, that's the thing that people pull out is they're like, oh, you have daddy issues, or like, oh, your uncle must have molested you, or like, oh, you just need attention so bad, you probably hate yourself, you have no self-esteem. And it's like there are these, you know, very, very exclusively negative stereotypes that are levied at the door of people who do sex work, mostly women who do sex work. We're too stupid to do anything else. We're drug addicts, like that sort of thing. So I think when you have that programming for so fucking long in people, it's really, really easy to dehumanize a group of people that forever and ever, well, not forever, but for, you know, the last however long here in America have just, it's only these bad, horrible, negative things. And you're right. I mean, I think social media does open some people up to understanding, as horrible as Twitter is, to understanding that we're not those things, you know? Like, I saw my dad 30 minutes ago. I see my dad all the time. I see him like fucking 3 times a week. Like, he always wants to visit, you know? I have a good relationship with my mom. I have a husband. Like, you know, I take care of myself. I'm sober. And like when you tell people things like that, sometimes online, they'll be like, yeah, okay, whatever. Yeah, fuck you. Yeah, sure. So it's like, you know, these attitudes still do exist, but I have seen, even from when I started doing sex work, because I've been open about doing sex work online for like 8 years now. So even in my lifetime, I've seen attitudes towards us dramatically change. Because it used to be that people would message me and they would be like, I didn't know that sex workers could be like you. And I'd be like, what does that mean? What does that mean? And, you know, people would be like, I didn't know that they could be educated, or I didn't know that, you know, sex workers could think. And I don't really get a lot of those anymore. I don't get them as much anymore. And I think that another part of that is OnlyFans exploding in popularity the way that it has. I think that during this pandemic, I mean, we've seen the company has put out estimates of millions and millions and millions of new accounts created on OnlyFans since the pandemic hit. And, you know, our material conditions have been getting progressively worse, right? So I think that as things get worse and worse and worse, and as the conversation and the view of us shifts to social media, and with the rise of things like AVN Stars, Just for Fans, OnlyFans, It's My Girl, like websites like that, we've really seen, oh shit, porn isn't just for like these girls that are on these in my dad's magazines. Porn is like the girl in my chemistry class has an OnlyFans, or like,
Mm-hmm.
my neighbor has an OnlyFans, my girlfriend has an OnlyFans.
Yeah,
So,
the funny thing is too, is because a lot of those stereotypes that you brought up earlier are ironically true of me, and I feel like most YouTubers and streamers as well. I have a nicotine addiction. I wouldn't say I have daddy issues, but like my biological dad, like I've never met him, and I'm probably too fucking. I believe I'm too fucking stupid to go to college because I really don't want to, and I hate school. I hate school. I really, really do. All these things are true of me, and I feel like most streamers as well, like YouTubers, So it's funny how like most YouTubers and streamers don't get the kind of hate, but sex workers do.
yeah, yeah, and this was something that I kind of touched on, or I should have touched on more with Internex the other night. Is he was like, well, violent pornography causes men in the age demographic of 16 to 24 to become violent, and it was kind of like,
Do you think video games make people violent?
well, he does, which is why I
That's
didn't bring
funny.
that up. Yeah, he unironically I've seen him argue that, but it's just kind of like, well, okay, why do we never have these conversations about action stars, male action stars who are in a ton of violent movies? We're never like, these people are damaging society, but it's like, if I want to put a furry butt plug in my ass, suddenly I'm destroying the fabric of Western civilization. You know what I mean?
A
It's
furry
like
one?
so good.
Is the part that goes in the butt furry?
No, but you can have butt plugs with like tails on them.
Okay, that's how I was thinking. I was like, wait, a furry one. Okay, all right.
Yeah, the silicone, it's too annoying. I'm just going straight for the smooth fur. It just pops right in.
That sounds horrific. That sounds like
Worst thing
broken.
I've ever said.
That does
Yeah.
not sound pleasant. No, yeah, I definitely know what you're talking about though, with like the stereotypes and whatnot. But I am actually glad. I really do hope that Twitter, or I hope all social media platforms start to get more friendly, though it doesn't seem the direction they're going in.
It's going the opposite direction.
I hope that Twitter doesn't crack down on sex workers more. Like, I really hope that,
Well,
because I feel like there needs to be somewhere for this sort of cultural shift to happen. And if this cultural shift happens, we're going to get to a point where lawmakers who are putting out legislation that harms sex workers are going to get a lot more unpopular. This has generally happened with every marginalized group in history, where these marginalized groups start to get or a certain thing that is at one point in society very looked down on starts to get more popular, and those lawmakers that pushed against those things start themselves to get really unpopular. Like, I know this happened in the Prohibition. I watched a really good simple history about it, where he was talking about Prohibition with alcohol, where there was a time where there was a lot of fear-mongering about alcohol that happened, and these politicians that were that were for Prohibition got really, really fucking popular. But then we all know what happened during Prohibition. Gangs started to get way more, successful because they were able to sell illegal liquor. Speakeasies started to get really popular, where people would secretly be drinking. And this is actually why where a lot of unironic racial equality started to happen, because you had black and white people and like Hispanic people and people from all different cultures getting together to drink illegally. And they started to build friendships and a lot of cultural ties. And eventually, people realized how dumb Prohibition was, and the politicians pushing for it got really, really unpopular. And that's because there were these spaces like speakeasies and whatnot where people just sort of realized, like, actually, alcohol isn't destroying our country. As long as it's used in moderation. I feel like the same thing's going to happen with sex work, where it's like right now there's a lot of fear mongering about it, but as it gets more normalized and people realize actually sex work isn't this evil, horrible thing, and somewhere like Twitter can be a place where people start to build friendships or start to realize or humanize sex workers, we're going to start to see those politicians that push so hard against them get really unpopular as culture moves in the opposite direction.
yeah, I think the difference between prohibition and sex work is that, at the time of prohibition, it's really like a generational thing, So at the time of prohibition, it had nothing to do with like, it was like a small subgroup of people, right? So
Wait,
everyone of all ages were like, hey, we like to drink alcohol. This is a little bit ridiculous. Hey, we're seeing the problems that are coming from this. And it was like a much more widespread thing, whereas sex work is a lot more marginalized. And it's also like, I don't think as long as we have the current politicians in that we have, that we're going to see legislation like this continue, right? So it's a much more generational divide. So like millennials and Zoomers are much, much, much friendlier to sex work than, you know, the Gen Xers or the boomers that are in power right now. So what I worry is that we're not actually going to see any sort of change until there's more younger millennials or Zoomers actually holding office. And by that time, I have to wonder if we won't have been so regulated and we won't have beaten it down so much and pushed it so much out of the light that, you know, damage has like really been done for a lot of people. And that might just me being a doomer, but those are just like the differences that I see.
I don't think it's doomer, but I did like when I feel like there's a lot more comparison between prohibition and the cracking down of sex work than you probably realize, because when you think about what happened was with prohibition, it was mostly like women pushing for prohibition, like these women's groups that were like, our husbands are getting drunk all the time, they aren't getting work done, blah 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 blah. But everybody drank, and then whenever prohibition happened, everybody realized like, oh shit, I can't go to the bar and have a beer with my friends anymore. And not only that, but people were just generally getting more and more miserable because drinking was a really popular pastime that helped people let some steam off. Same goes for jacking off. Jacking off's the same thing. If sex work and porn gets really cracked down on the internet, and there's not enough facets for people to just go ahead and let their load out or off, you know, I'm sorry. But people are going to get really, really like against it. They're going to realize how much of a mistake it was, and it's going to have the same outcome, I feel like, as prohibition did.
So, right. You know, I can understand the argument for like once it affects people who just want a nut. Like, yeah, like as long as it's only affecting sex workers, like nobody gives a shit, right? Because there's just not enough of us. But the second that it's like, I can't find my material to jerk off to, and like everybody can't jerk off anymore, like, yeah, I can see that argument being much more viable.
And it will get to that point. That's the problem. Actually,
well, with this, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's going to get to that point. If you keep on cracking down on sex workers, you're going to start cracking down on porn. There's no stopping it just fucking over sex workers, making it harder for them. They will always try to make it harder for sex workers. There's a reason why they keep on pushing this new legislation, because guess what? Just like the drug war, cracking down on sex work and trying to criminalize it more is not going to stop the criminal acts that exist in the industry, like the exploitation and whatnot. It's not going to work. Every sociologist and every criminologist agrees criminalizing sex work doesn't help with human trafficking and child sexual abuse, and cracking down on drugs doesn't help with drug use. It just doesn't work.
Right.
It's going to have the same outcome.
This is something that I said to Internex too. I was like, yeah, making things illegal doesn't stop people from doing them. If it did, we wouldn't have any crime. Like, it doesn't work that way, you know?
Yeah.
So what's going to happen is performers are going to end up putting themselves in, you know, sketchier and more unsafe situations to try to produce this material. And this is really interesting too, because this feeds really, really close into something that I was talking to him about. Whereas he wanted to just straightforward ban certain kinds of porn, whereas this is not like a ban on porn as like on the surface, but the effects of this essentially will be a widespread crackdown on porn. So I think we should explain to your chat what this is. Mm-hmm. So it is it's like stop the...
It's like stop exploitation. Yeah. I actually have a thing up here for it here. By popular request, I'm compiling a master post on CISEA, the bipartisan bill by Senator Sass.
I'm looking at it too, yeah.
Yeah, do you want me to read it and we can like stop and like talk about it every once in a while, or?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And at send Jeff Merkley, that would purge porn from social media and devastate sex workers' income during a pandemic thread. Please retweet. I'll go ahead and I'll retweet it. I haven't done it yet.
Yes, so it's the Stop Internet Sexual Exploitation Act.
Yeah, that's what CISEA stands for, chat. The bill targets any online platform that hosts and makes available to the general public porn. This essentially ranges from OnlyFans to Twitter. So here's like the here it is. A wide variety of intended restrictions and stipulations on adult platforms, including the following: require any user uploading a video to the platform to verify their identity. Require any user uploading a video to the platform also upload a signed consent form for every individual appearing in the video, create a private right of action against an uploader who uploads a pornographic image without the consent of an individual featured in the image, require platforms hosting pornography include a notice or banner on the website instructing how an individual can request removal of a video if an individual has not consented to it being uploaded on the platform. I'm sure this can't be abused in any way. Prohibit video downloads from these platforms to be in place within 3 months of enactment of this legislation. Require platforms hosting pornography offer a 24-hour hotline staffed by the platform. Individuals who contact the hotline can request removal of a video that has been distributed without their consent. Require removal of flagged videos as quickly as possible, but not to exceed 2 hours. Require platforms to use software to block a video from being re-uploaded after its removal. The platforms must have the software in place within 6 months of enactment of this legislation. Man, I'm sure none of these can be abused by bad actors. Directs the Federal Trade Commission to enforce violations of these requirements. Creates a database of individuals that have indicated they do not consent. The database must be checked against before new content can be uploaded to the platform. Instructs the Department of Justice to promulgate rules on where this database can be housed and determine how to connect these victims with services to include counseling and casework. Failure to comply with this requirement will result in a civil penalty to the platform, with proceeds going towards victims' services. So this may sound on paper all nice and good, but I want you to imagine, do you think Twitter or most mainstream platforms are going to like acquiesce to all these demands, or do you think they're just going to ban sex work and sex workers? I want you guys to guess what these heavily profit-oriented platforms are going to decide to do. So yeah, I'll go ahead and I'll let you speak on what we've read here.
So we've essentially already seen what outcome is going to happen. So with FOSTA and SESTA, the whole thing was if a third party posted something on FOSTA and SESTA that resulted in prostitution, because prostitution is the legal term. I don't know if you guys are aware, but we keep saying sex worker. The reason that we don't say prostitute is because, like, me and a lot of other people in the sex work community, not everyone in the community, but a lot of people in the community consider prostitute to be kind of a slur.
Yeah.
Just because prostitute has, such negative connotations to it, and it's been used mostly to hurt people. So prostitution is a legal term. So any post can now result in that platform being sued, either in civil court or criminal court. And that's because, their protection under Section 230 of the Communications Act was amended by FOSTA and SESTA. So now, instead of hiring, either the manpower or building algorithms that can go through and find any post that looks like it is, I guess that's not the way to say it. So instead of taking the time to either build the algorithm necessary or have the actual human staff to determine if what they're looking at is can be judged reasonably enough to be actual solicitation, rather than do that, what these companies, and by that I mean Facebook and Instagram, and they might own other platforms or other companies too, I'm not sure, but so what they did was create these wide sweeping general algorithms that and these new rules that we were talking about, like you can't show any video from the strip club, you can't sit in a position that might appear sexual. I actually got a reminder on my Facebook today about a post that I posted a couple of years. Here it is. Your Memories on Facebook from 2 years ago. It was a picture of me. I'm sitting on the ground and I'm putting my foot behind my head. So I'm making an L with my legs, right? Like one leg is straight out and one I'm putting behind my head. And I'm wearing all of my clothes. I'm wearing underwear, I'm wearing a skirt, I'm wearing a shirt, everything. Facebook took that down and told me that was inappropriate because even sitting or putting your body in certain positions can be considered too sexual. And that got flagged by the algorithm because they don't want me to be soliciting prostitution from that image. I also got my account taken away for 30 days once. I get my account on Facebook taken away for 30 days very regularly. I would say I have access to my Facebook probably 6 months out of the year because the other 6 months I'm in 30-day bans. Because people can weaponize that against you. Like if I do a lot of political arguing on Facebook, so if I get in an argument with someone and they don't like what I say, they can just go report any of my photos for nudity or talking too sexual or doing anything like that because I'm a sex worker, and they can shut me up and get my account access taken away.
Yeah.
And they're doing something similar on Instagram too, so it can be weaponized against us. But it was for just sitting in a position that they considered to be too sexual. So it's like, they have these. It's so much easier to do these widespread algorithms that just push and push and push and push sex workers and anything sexual off their platform than it is to like do the due diligence and, acquiesce to all of these, what are going to be very expensive, very time consuming rules that are going to need a lot of people to make them happen.
Yeah, that's like the main issue. When they do these crackdowns, you're seeing this tendency for these websites just say, fuck it, we're just going to ban anything even close to it outright. We don't want to deal with the law. Like they want to keep their money. They don't want to do it. And they don't want to expend the resources to acquiesce to those restrictions, because that's like with the Sasea law here. Also, Christy Stevens is actually in chat. What's up? With these Sasea things, or with the Sasea demands, like this is a lot. Like I don't think you guys realize, but these demands, no website, Twitter, none of these websites are going to want to acquiesce to these. This is going to take a lot of manpower and a 24-hour hotline staffed by the platform, requiring the platform to block the videos re-uploaded after their removal, requiring platforms to host pornography to include a notice banner, having to accept consent forms, verify identity. This is a lot of manpower for these platforms. They aren't going to do it. They're just going to insta-ban anything that comes close to it, and they're just going to modify their TOS. This is just going to broadly impact sex workers across the board in a very negative way. There's another
huge problem with this as well, which is that if you have an image or video of you that you don't want up, you have to give all of your personal information to this database. And once your information is in the database, you can never appear in any pornographic material again.
Yeah.
So if you're a sex worker, you can't be a victim. And if you're a victim, you can't be a sex worker. It's all or nothing. So effectively, this cuts sex workers out of any protection against revenge porn material.
Yeah, and this is the same way that I think this is a pretty good example that's kind of tangentially related. This happens a lot with sex trafficking when it comes to illegal immigration. A lot of young women that immigrate here to America through like illegal means, which I have no problem with, their presence here in America is illegal. So if they're being exploited and they're being sex trafficked, they can't go to the police to report it. Whenever something bad is happening, because they're afraid they're going to get fucking deported, right? Like it just doesn't work.
So this is another problem with taking with making it illegal, is that you effectively isolate victims. So not only are they afraid of the police and afraid of the government, but they're afraid to reach out to other women who would be able to help them. You completely destroy, not completely, but you really damage their ability to network. So if full service is legal and people can talk about it online and they can form communities online, then you can reach out to a community and you can reach out to women and be like, please help me. But if you can't talk about that sort of thing and you have no network to reach out to, those are opportunities that have just been taken away from you.
We got to protect the boobie at all costs. I'll put it into terms that my chat will understand. The boobie is in danger. We need to protect the boobie. The boy pussy is also in danger. We need to protect the boy pussy. Do you like femme cat boys? They're also in trouble from this. Do you like big honkers? Do you like little honkers? Do you like medium honkers? Those are in danger too. We got to stop this shit, okay? We got to stop this fucking puritanical fucking crackdown on sex work here really quick. I don't know why this is being covered by Twitter, but okay, never mind. All right, so yeah.
Hey, I have to play Among Us in like 15 minutes with the serfs.
Okay, cool. Do you this is like a really long thread, so it probably would take longer than 15 minutes to cover. But is there anything you want to go over before you go?
No, I just wanted to give the perspective of someone actually working in the industry for, you know, a little bit of the coverage of it, and I'm sure that I think you'll cover it accurately, and I believe in you. So
yeah,
I just wanted to pop in and talk a little bit about it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, I definitely do want to talk about like sex work stuff too, because sex workers are a marginalized group, and I spend a lot of the time on my platform speaking for and advocating for marginalized groups. So, and of course, obviously, platforming people who are affected by it as well is pretty important. So, yeah, it's been nice having you on here.
Yeah, I'll talk to you later. Thanks for letting me come on.
Yeah, no problem. Well, if you ever want to come on again, talk about stuff like this, be sure to contact me, and I'll definitely have you on.
Okay. Yeah, bye, Xander.
See ya. That was quite poggers. Yeah, so this is like a huge problem that's going on right now, where we're seeing this cracking down on sex work, particularly on these social media platforms, and this just isn't going to solve any of the problems, like any of the negative parts that seem to be happening in the sex work industry, like the exploitation and whatnot. It's just not going to solve any of these issues. Yeah, this could also affect artists as well, though probably not to such a severe degree, because pornographic art is different from like actual, you know, like porn, right? At least in this respect it is. So this is like a huge issue that I definitely want to get into more. Do you guys want to, let's go ahead and read a little bit more of this. The bill demands sites with porn institute strenuous verification and content moderation systems, such as 24-hour platform hotline with a 2-hour window to pull reported material. A 2-hour window is fucking insane. It takes YouTube alone weeks to get to videos that are against their TOS. It takes Twitter weeks to look over any account that I report, okay? This shit is really hard on their moderation teams. These strains will likely cause Twitter, OnlyFans, etc. to dump porn over institute changes just altogether. Websites that violate these restrictions violate the Federal Trade Commission Act's unfair or deceptive act of or practice rules. TLDR, this can lead to a settlement negotiation or a cease and desist order, which will result in civil penalties if violated. Again, this creates a situation where legal liability and the cost involved in creating borderline impossible enforcement structures are so strenuous that most social media websites will simply remove NSFW content as opposed to micromanage it. There's a lot more to go into this, and I definitely recommend you check out the entire thing, but like seriously, guys, this is just going to like hurt sex workers. These platforms are just going to dump it all together. They aren't going to acquiesce to these demands. They're just going to dump it all together. We saw this with to a degree with Pornhub when it came to they just fucking eliminated all of these porn videos for people that aren't verified. Now, is it good to have to verify people? That's probably a good thing, being able to verify people's age and stuff like that. But when you go as far as having to sign consent forms for every person involved in every video you upload, this is just a massive roadblock that isn't going to stop illegal or material that is exploiting people from being uploaded elsewhere. It's just not going to stop this. It's just going to make it hard for people following the rules to follow those rules and to be able to make a living doing so. It's a really big problem. Christy Stevens says, pro tip, remove any links from your bio for now until we see what's going on and just write them out. Yeah, definitely like remove the links from your bio and stuff until we see where this goes. That's probably a good idea. For those of you guys that aren't aware, Christy Stevens, sex worker, pretty fucking famous. So yeah, I would definitely listen to what she has to say because she probably knows what the fuck she's talking about. Every social media platform that banned nudity has pretty much failed. Vine, Snapchat is nowhere near where it was. Yeah, exactly. This would probably create a bigger dark market, which would probably be worse than any legal porn site. Yeah, think about it like this. How easy is it to locate and prosecute those that engage in the spread of child sexual exploitation on like Pornhub, where it's very easy to be tracked and found by the law, than somewhere like on the dark web, right? It's way harder for the police to find illegal or illicit material on the dark web than it is if it's somewhere like Twitter or Pornhub, where the police can find it way easier and it can be reported more easily. Tumblr crashed and burned after they removed nudity. Oh yeah, I remember how much of a fucking shit show that was. It was insane. But like, guys, this is really, really important, and we need to be speaking out about this more. I feel like there's not enough Breadtubers speaking out against these laws and about the issues that sex workers are going to be facing. And I feel like it's because not a lot of people view sex workers as being people almost, or as like a marginalized group. And it's true. I'll tweet it right now. I'm tweeting it right now, okay? I want all of you to see. Look at that. I misspelled workers because I'm a fucking idiot. There you go. Sex workers are a marginalized group. It's true. No doubt about it. They literally do this at the end of every year. Yeah, it does seem like that. They always pull this kind of shit like every year towards the end. What's this Discord notification that I have? Okay, cool. Alrighty. If you enjoyed this video, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you did. Make sure to leave a like if you liked the video, of course, and subscribe if you're new and you want to see more from me. Ring that bell icon so you actually get notified when I go live or upload a video. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter or join the fan Discord through the link in the description. And on top of that, if you feel so inclined, you have extra money that you don't know what to do with and you don't need it, you can always donate to me or subscribe to the website, xanderhall.com/live. Hit the join button to become a channel member or even pledge to me on Patreon. They're all very appreciated. It's how I do this for a living, and I wouldn't be able to do this without your support. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good one.